Hey everybody, AC here, and welcome to another terrible theory. This time, we are talking. We are going to be talking about Age of Imprisonment, The Legend of Zelda: Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, the newest game, in the newest game in the Hyrule Warriors trilogy. And I already made a couple theories talking about why I firmly believe that Hyrule Warriors and its sequel Age of Calamity are 100% canon to the Zelda timeline. Age of Calamity has been confirmed by Nintendo that it is canon to the timeline. And that game straight up tells us that the first Hyrule Warriors game is also canon. So the game itself is telling us that Hyrule Warriors is canon. So, I go more into detail in that other video, so you can watch that. But I want to talk about Age of Imprisonment because it was just announced at the most recent Nintendo Direct, which as of this recording was just a few days ago. As of this recording, it was just a few days ago when that was announced. And I want to just briefly talk about who could be on the roster. Because it's supposed to take place during the Imprisoning War that precedes Tears of the Kingdom. So, we know that Zelda, Rauru, Sonia, and then the Four Sages, Minoru, and the Four Sages, they all 8 of them have to be playable. But there's no way they're going to make a Hyrule Warriors game with only 8 playable characters. They have to have more playable characters than just 8. There's going to be more than that. So who else could be playable in this game? Who else could it be? Well, I got a list here. I got a list of 23 characters that could potentially be playable in Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. So first off, Ganondorf. He's playable in the original Hyrule Warriors, and Calamity Ganon is a playable character in Age of Calamity. The main villain is almost always playable in the Hyrule Warriors games. The main villain is always playable. So Ganondorf has to be playable as well. And then, aside from that, I think we might have we might end up having something that is very similar to what they did with Pura and Robbie in Age of Calamity, how they had the 2 of them together as one playable character. The 2 of them together took up one slot. It took up one playable character slot. I think we might get something similar with Kome and Kotake. Twinrova. I believe we will get Twinrova in Age of Imprisonment. Because we do see them in Tears of the Kingdom in a few different cutscenes. We see them in the background in a few different cutscenes, but we never actually hear them speak or hear them do anything. But they are always by Ganondorf's side whenever they show up. So I believe we will get to see them in action in Age of Imprisonment. I firmly believe that. Also, I also one thing I should point out is that Hyrule Warriors and both Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity always end up having 3 original characters that are playable. 3 original characters. So Hyrule Warriors, you had Linko and Lana, as well as Sia, and then you have Astor, as well as Trico and Suga. Terrico, not Trico. Terrico. So, with all of that, I'm certain there's going to be 3 original characters for Age of Imprisonment. There's going to be 3 original characters that we are going to get to play as in Age of Imprisonment. I'm not sure who they are, because they're going to be original. They're going to be characters we've never heard of. I'm certain they're going to be characters we've never even heard of. But there's going to be 3 of them. That's going to take up 3 different slots. That's going to take up 3 different slots. So that brings it up to 13. 13 playable characters right there. Next, there's also always in both Hyrule Warriors and in Age of Calamity, there's always a joke character. There's a character that is there as mostly just kind of a joke character, just kind of a throwaway character. For Age of Calamity, it was the Great Fairies. The Great Fairies. Like, obviously their buds can't actually move around. It's just meant to be just a funny kind of a joke throwaway character. And then in the original Hyrule Warriors, you had Tingle. Like, you have joke characters in each game. I think the joke character in Age of Imprisonment could be the Great Deku Tree. Or more accurately, it would be the Great Deku Tree when he was the same size as Hetsu is in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Because we know that the Great Deku Tree has been around for a long, long, long time. And it's possible, and given how the Imprisoning War is supposed to take place like super early in the timeline, before even Ocarina of Time, then it's possible that we could see a version of the Great Deku Tree when he was able to walk around like Hetsu and the other Koroks can. It's possible we could see a version of him, and I'm just using an image of Hetsu as an example. We could see a version of him able to walk around similar to that. So I believe that will be the joke character. The character that is not necessarily meant to be taken seriously. Then, another character that we could see, I think it's actually pretty likely that we will see them. It doesn't necessarily make sense in terms of the timeline, but in terms of the timeline, because this next character is supposed to be the descendant of Rauru and Sonia, who have kids, but we never got to see them in the cutscenes. We never got to see the kids. In fact, their kids could potentially be the 3 original characters that we get to play as. It could be that their children are the 3 original they have 3 kids, and that their 3 children are the 3 original characters that we get to play as. That is very possible. But I believe that the next character, although this doesn't quite match up with the timeline, I believe the next character is going to be the Ancient Hero. I firmly believe that we will get to see this guy in action. We will get to see what his fighting style was in this game. So it doesn't quite match up because we know that after it was sealed, this guy was a descendant of Rauru and Sonya, and he would go on to defeat the Calamity the first time with a he would go on to defeat the Calamity for the first time with another one of the descendants of Rauru and Sonya, who is like that era Zelda. And so we know that takes we know that that's the way it's supposed to happen. But I do firmly believe that we will end up seeing him in the game in some way, shape, or form. It's just it's too good of an opportunity to pass up on. Getting to see what the Ancient Hero's fighting style was. It's too good of an opportunity to pass up on. And next, the next three. These three might be a little bit of a stretch. But in Tears of the Kingdom, we are told about draconification and how it's forbidden. It is forbidden draconification is forbidden. You're not supposed to do it. And we know that when you go through draconification, you become a dragon. We see that with both Zelda and Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom. But there's 3 other dragons in Hyrule. Dinral, Naydra, and Farosh. We see them. But the fact that they are dragons, very similar to the ones that Zelda and Ganondorf becomes, has some interesting lore implications, especially given how the 3 of them have goat-like faces. The 3 dragons have goat-like faces. Exactly the kind of face that Rauru has. So it is implied that those 3 dragons are in fact members of the Zonai that went through draconification. So what if we got to see them before they became dragons? Before they became dragons. We get to see the 3 Zonai before they become dragons. And there's even a fan creations of what they possibly could have looked like. So we got Dinral here. Farosh. And Naydra. I think it is very possible we could see the 3 of them as fighters. Now, that it may be a bit more of a stretch. I'm not certain that they would do that. I'm not certain Nintendo would do that. I feel pretty confident about all the other characters I've mentioned so far. These 3 are a bit of a stretch. I do fully acknowledge that these 3 might not be playable. That those 3 options might not be playable in the game. It is very possible that they won't be. But I also think that there is a chance that we might get that. So that's why I want to bring that up here. But with that said, that gives us 18 playable characters. Right? Yes. 18 playable characters. That is 18 playable characters right there. How many playable characters were there at the start at the base, how many base characters were there with Age of Calamity when it first came out, before it got DLC? 18. 18 characters exactly. After it got DLC, it wound up having, let's see. After it got DLC, it wound up having 22 playable characters, I believe. Yeah, because we got 2 playable characters in both updates. So 22 playable characters by the end, after all the updates. But there was only 18 when the game first released, and that's 18 playable characters right there. That is 18 possible playable characters right there, without having to deal with the same time travel shenanigans as Age of Calamity, with characters from modern day coming to the ancient past to help Zelda. So they could do that. They 100% could do. They 100% could do that. They 100% could do that, and they could have 18 playable characters, a full roster, without having to rely on bringing characters from the far, far future to the ancient past. They wouldn't need to do that. They have 18 characters right now that they could use. However, knowing Nintendo, they will most likely find a way to put Link into the game. I mean, he is basically the face of the franchise. He is the face of the franchise. So they will find a way to put Link into the game. I'm pretty positive of that. And if he's going to be brought into the game, most likely the other sages from Tears of the Kingdom are going to be brought in as well. So we will have Link, we will have Tulin, we will have Sidon, we will have Yunobo, and we will have Riju all join the roster, most likely. They don't need to do that. I've already proven that there are 18 characters they could use, and they could have a full roster. They could have a full roster with just those 18. But most likely, they will want to bring in those characters. They will most likely want to bring in those 5 characters to fill out the roster more. So, that brings it up to 23 total characters that we could potentially have in the game. Again, it's possible that the 3 dragons, Dinral, Nadra, and Farosh, will not be playable. It's very possible they won't be playable. I think it's possible they could be, but I'm not saying they will be. I'm saying there is a chance, however unlikely, but still a chance. So if you don't count those 3, then we could potentially have a good 20 playable characters in the game, which is still a good roster. That is still a pretty decently sized roster. But I really hope that we get the 3 dragons in their Zonai forms. I would love to see what they looked like before they got Draconified. So there we go. That is Age of Imprisonment. That is Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and who I believe will be on the roster of that game upon launch. It could be anywhere from 18 to 23 characters. 18 to 23 characters. I am very curious, once we get more information on that, I'm very curious to find out how right I am, how many characters I was able to properly predict, and how many I got wrong. I'm really curious to find that out, and I may end up making an update to this video. I may end up making a video once the full roster gets revealed. I may end up making a video talking about how right or how wrong I wound up being. But yeah, in any case, that's all I got for this video. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did enjoy it, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good jazz. Let me know in the comment box below, what character do you want to see in the roster for this game. Anyway, I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.